Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 20 M-rated games to grace Nintendo's consoles. We won't be including games that were ported from other platforms, but as long as they hit Nintendo's consoles first, they were considered.
If you think you're coming this way, you can think again.
Oh, you're a real chum.
Number 20, Guist. With not a lot of M-rated games that come to Nintendo first, we have to start with one that's, well, just okay. The GameCube's Guist is one of the few mature titles that was actually published by Nintendo. It follows a scientist who digs too deeply into a shady corporation and must fight to reclaim his body once his soul is removed from it. It definitely had interesting ideas in gameplay, at least when it came to signature scare mechanics that came from being a disembodied character. However, the performance wasn't up to par, and the other half of gameplay was mediocre FPS gunplay, which got it negatively compared to many other shooters at the time. Number 19, Zombie U. Although the initial marketing behind the Wii U confused consumers, it still had solid launch titles. Among the bunch was Ubisoft's Zombie U, a zombie survival horror game set in London. While it took a lot of inspiration from those that came before it, there were a few things that set it apart. One was the console's gamepad, which added an extra layer of difficulty in balancing your attention to the dismay of some players. While there wasn't much to the story and visuals were lacking, the survival aspects were strong. Specifically, if your character died, they turned into a zombie. You'd take control of someone new, and were forced to go hunting for your former self in order to reclaim your supplies. Number 18, Fatal Frame, Maiden of Black Water.
The camera obscura photographs the netherworld, a whole other world separate from our own.
It isn't the best entry in the Fatal Frame series, but Maiden of Blackwater is still a worthy installment and was initially published by Nintendo itself. Another game to launch first on the Wii U, it follows three protagonists investigating a mysterious mountain whose spirits have turned angry due to an evil force known as the Black Water. The story and characters may have been a bit weak, but the scares that populated earlier games were still there. Using the gamepad as the camera obscura to dispel violent spirits was a ton of fun. It added a thrilling layer of interactivity to the well-worn mechanic, making it feel fresh. Number 17, The House of the Dead, Overkill. Mostly known as an arcade heavyweight, The House of the Dead was reimagined splendidly with the Wii's Overkill. It throws players into the middle of a mutant outbreak in Louisiana and tasks them with shooting their way through all kinds of vicious monsters. The Wiimote is a perfect tool for an on-rails shooter. It's plenty of fun to bask in the gore, even if the difficulty will never really challenge you. It also never takes itself too seriously, going full-on camp with its storyline characters and style. Although the hardware could cause frame rate dips with too many enemies, and the game is a bit too short, it's still a bloody good time.
Alone.
I can't go on in a world without my mommy.
In a world that would never accept him.
Number 16, Castlevania Lords of Shadow, Mirror of Fate. While Nintendo fans didn't get Konami's rebooted Lords of Shadow duology, they did get Mirror of Fate on the 3DS, sandwiched in between the two games. Within this new continuity, it gave access to a new fan-favorite character with their own storylines, including Simon Belmont and Alucard. It was more violent than any Castlevania that had been released on Nintendo's handhelds and took advantage of darker subject matter. Returning to the side-scrolling roots was definitely a plus, and the game's combat shined. While it was a bit too easy compared to other entries, it still proved to Nintendo that Mercury Steam could handle Metroidvania as well, as the studio was enlisted to handle two future Metroids. Number 15, Emo The Smiling Man, Famicom Detective Club.
18年前の事件の被害者はみんな女の子。3人とも手で首を絞められたってわけか。
The first entry in the Famicom Detective Club series in 27 years, Emo The Smiling Man came as a complete surprise. And a welcome one. The visual novel puts you in the shoes of a private investigator aiding the police in solving the murder of a young boy. Creepily, the crime also concerns an urban legend, a killer named Emo, who wears a paper bag with a smiling face drawn on it over his head. Naturally, the dark subject matter and violent imagery necessitated a mature rating. While the slow style won't be for everyone, the way the core mystery unravels is sure to get under the skin of adventure game players. Number 14. Doom 64. Doom is one of gaming's oldest FPS franchises, and still one of the best. Back in 1997, the Nintendo 64 received its very own installment. As the Doom guy, we were recruited once again for demolishing demons after their return from the previous games. Back then, it was an incredible feat to get Doom on Nintendo's latest console. One of the biggest criticisms at launch was that it was too similar to previous entries, not that we felt it needed to be all that different. It was still fun to rip our way through demonic hordes with extreme prejudice. With this much exciting carnage, it didn't need to be that deep. Number 13. Silent Hill: Shattered Memories. We said we weren't doing ports, but we said nothing of reimaginings. The Wii's Shattered Memories takes the first Silent Hill and flips it on its head. It begins the same way, with Harry Mason entering the haunted town in search of his missing daughter. However, it changes things up by alternating between his therapy sessions and his time in Silent Hill, with the player's answers in the former impacting what happens in the latter. There were certainly some difficult changes to accept for longtime fans, like the complete absence of combat. But the positives can speak for themselves, including a great spin on the original story and a tense, moody atmosphere.
It's academic, really, as we're only truly conscious of death when it happens to others. Get to my age, you'll have seen plenty of people die.
Number 12. 999. 9 hours, 9 persons, 9 doors.
One theory going around is that a man named Lord Gordain bought her. Seemed like he'd been one of the few to survive the Titanic sinking.
The first entry into the tense Zero Escape series, 999, released on the Nintendo DS back in 2010. As they awaken on a cruise ship after being abducted, players find themselves among 8 others and are given 9 hours to escape before the ship sinks. Complicating matters are the sealed doors and windows, puzzles that require teamwork, and booby traps that can result in a very messy end. There's immediate intrigue in the setup, and the desire to make it out alive is maintained throughout. The other characters are also well written, making you want to help them reach the outside just as much as you want to reach it yourself.
Yeah, can't even tell who it is. But the clothes are...
No mistake about it. It's Snake.
Number 11. Dead Space: Extraction. If you're even a little bit familiar with the Dead Space series, it should be pretty obvious why Extraction received a mature rating. As a prequel to the original game, it showed exactly what happened to the mining colony on the Ishimura spaceship before Isaac Clarke arrived, and it wasn't pretty. While the game leaned much more into action over horror, the Wii mode proved once again that it was an excellent controller for an on-rail shooter. Blasting apart each necromorph's limbs was undeniably thrilling, and while it obviously wasn't as visually strong as the other games, it was impressive for the Wii. That's on top of getting some engaging world building within the overall Dead Space universe. Number 10. Turok: Dinosaur Hunter. A commercial and critical success, Turok showed the world just how much could be accomplished on the N64 console, and did so in style. At the time, Nintendo had a reputation for shying away from potential titles that might conflict with their generally family-friendly reputation. But with the release of Turok, they showed that they wouldn't faint at the sight of blood, so long as it was backed up by a solid story and worthy gameplay experience. At the time of its release, Turok established itself as one of the standards by which other console shooters would be judged, especially in terms of graphics. Often compared to Doom and Duke Nukem, Turok brought all the bloodshed, but with greater freedom to explore. Number 9. No More Heroes 2: Desperate Struggle.
That's what I like to hear. This is it. This is what I've been praying for.
No More Heroes, released in 2008, introduced us to one of the more memorable characters in modern gaming, Travis Touchdown, in a title that was as unique in its gameplay and storytelling as it was stylish. The sequel managed to live up to its predecessor and even further refine the many elements that made the original such a great game. It's a truly unique game that is self-aware of its position as one of the few mature titles on the Wii, a position of privilege it shows off at every turn with sexually suggestive material, adult humor, and buckets of blood. The game always keeps you guessing, never letting up on the fun or quirky charm.
Sylvia, now that's paradise.
Number 8. Mad World.
Well, now that Jack's got that asshole trapped, he can finish him off with a big point combo move.
Oh, the carnage. In case you're not familiar with this title, imagine a Sin City video game, but with more blood spatter. Yes, you heard us correctly, bloodier than Sin City. The more elaborate, creative, or explosive you manage to make your kills in the various open environment levels, the more points you score. Every design choice, including the hyper-stylized graphics, seems as if it were made to emphasize the gore. The sound effects are also sickeningly satisfying. As for the game's plot, it's equal parts American Gladiators and Battle Royale, but with more specific events called Bloodbath Challenges, like Mandarts, or trapping enemies in front of trains. It's sick, remarkably replayable, and buckets of fun.
Because everyone's too busy running around with their heads up their asses to do anything. Sorry, but the cavalry ain't coming.
Number 7. Shin Megami Tensei V.
Observe, young man. This land is known as the Netherworld.
The Persona series may get all the love these days, but the franchise it spun off from has proven it's still worthy of the attention of JRPG fans. Case in point, the Switch's Shin Megami Tensei V. Players control a high school student caught in the middle of a war between angels and demons. Exploration is a bigger focus than in previous games, as we go between modern-day Tokyo and the post-apocalyptic battleground where the war takes place. The turn-based combat is on par with Persona, even if it isn't as stylish, with the player able to summon demons to help them fight. Outside of having a few violent deaths, the coarse language and several demons designed pretty explicitly earned this game its maturity.
The god you cravenly revere is dead.
Number 6. Grand Theft Auto Chinatown Wars. This game franchise requires little introduction. One of the most notoriously violent video game franchises in gaming history, GTA has its fair share of detractors. Thankfully for Rockstar, the number of avid fans outnumber the haters, 100 to 1. No one ever really expected to see a GTA game on a Nintendo console, let alone a game initially released exclusively on the Nintendo DS. Although later made available on the PSP, the dual screen of the DS made for a unique Grand Theft Auto gameplay experience. Along with the usual GTA violence was an extensive drug-dealing side quest that allowed players to buy and sell drugs for the best profit possible. Adult only indeed. Number 5. Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem.
There's been an accident with your grandfather.
I'll be on the next flight out.
There are few games on Nintendo's platforms that can mess with your mind as well as Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem. This award-winning game puts players in the shoes of 12 distinct characters spread throughout various time periods. Thanks to Nintendo's patented sanity effects, the gameplay is as unnerving as it is unique and brilliant. While the sanity meter goes down, you might experience alarming fake deaths, blood pouring down the walls, or statues turning to look at you, or a trick that makes you think your save has been deleted. There's nothing quite like a game that manages to both terrify and wow you simultaneously. We recommend leaving the lights on. Number 4. Perfect Dark. It was hard not to think of this game as GoldenEye Part 2, but that isn't really a bad thing. GoldenEye was an excellent FPS that surprisingly got away with a T for teen rating. Then Perfect Dark came in as a spiritual successor and upped the ante in every regard, including the ESRB rating. As Joanna Dark, players fight to stop a thrilling conspiracy, and every level in the game offers a significant sense of accomplishment. Compared to many of the other games on this list, Perfect Dark is relatively tame. It still brings the bloodshed though, and happily embraced the M rating in letting loose some foul language.
Good, because we believe anything which does not work correctly should be destroyed. Consider that as you follow your backup plans.
Number 3. Bayonetta II.
That was quick. Did you get everything? Forgot the caviar.
Bayonetta development is a very interesting tale. The first game was originally released for the PS3 and Xbox 360 to widespread acclaim and gained a strong fanbase. But when publisher Sega ran into financial difficulties, a sequel seemed unlikely. Then, as a surprise to everyone, Nintendo announced that they'd picked up Bayonetta 2 as a Wii U exclusive, and the result was one of the finest hack-and-slash games ever made. We're not sure if bloodshed has ever been more beautiful than in Bayonetta 2. The game's striking artwork and sense of style is balanced almost impossibly well with the coordinated movement and truly overwhelming action sequences. Plus, with Bayonetta's trademark over-the-top sexuality, the game earned its M rating.
John, I'm on my way. Just behave yourself for a bit longer.
Number 2. Conker's Bad Fur Day.
Oh no! Hey, hold the hell! Come on, put it on quick! Put it on, I like it like that.
This game was originally set to be released as 12 Tales, Conker 64, and was to feature a happy-go-lucky squirrel in a kid-friendly adventure. However, facing criticism of being yet another kiddie platformer, especially after the release of Banjo-Kazooie, Rare decided to completely rework the game. Conker the cuddly squirrel turned into a greedy, foul-mouthed, hungover deadbeat. As a result, this guy would now jump on the breasts of a sexy sunflower, violently dispose of enemies, and ruin the lives of nearly everyone he came across. He was lewd, crude, and had parroting famous films down to an art. The multiplayer also never gets old, but the perfectly ridiculous single-player mode remains a classic.
Hello?
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure to go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Resident Evil 4. It's surprising to think that one of the best survival horror games ever made was originally released as an exclusive for the GameCube at a time when the system was struggling to get new games. As Leon Kennedy, we brave the rural countryside of Spain to search for the president's missing daughter, who had been kidnapped by a deadly cult. It was intense, captivating, and terrifying all at once, and even released with an awesome-looking, if not impractical, chainsaw controller. Eventually, the game would be ported to many other consoles, including Nintendo's follow-up, the Wii. That version showed how motion controls were a viable alternative to using a stick to aim, which made it all the more satisfying to blow off the enemies' heads.
Let me come with you.
No, you stay here with Leon. He is better with the ladies, I'm sure.
Know of any other great M-rated games that launched with Nintendo first? Let us know down in the comments. In the mood for more awesome gaming content? Be sure to check out this video here on Mojo Plays. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.